Hi everyone, and welcome to Otakusphere Weekly, Episode 6. I'm Karen, and with me tonight are LB.
Hello.
Lifesong.
Hello.
And Sal.
Hi.
So let's see, what's new this week? I haven't really been doing much otaku stuff this week, other than obviously, watching all the shows I'm keeping up with. In part because I'm busy trying to do some practical housewifey things, like I'm trying to learn how to cook more things, because my repertoire of things I can cook is pretty limited, and I'm like, well, if I'm actually doing the proper housewife thing, and I'm cooking like several nights a week, I should know how to make maybe more than like 5 things. So, I've kind of had my hands full with that lately. LB, you've been doing something more interesting than me, I hope, at least in the otaku spectrum.
Well, I mean, I'm always watching something or other. My wife, tells me that I watch too much, but, there's no such thing.
No such thing.
Yeah, so, most recently, what I was watching is my wife and I marathoned Black Butler, A Book of Circus, just a few nights ago. Because that's something that we were meaning to watch for a very long time, and it finally felt like the right time, so we marathoned that in one night, and that was pretty awesome.
Is that the second or third season?
That's the third season.
Okay, I've never seen any Black Butler.
We're gonna pretend like the second season doesn't exist.
That good, eh?
Yeah, second season is it doesn't exist.
I've wondered if I should watch Black Butler, because it sounded like something I would probably like, but, is anybody else familiar with the comedian Uncle Yo? He goes to anime conventions and, does stand-up comedy.
Yeah, I'm familiar with him.
He has a bit about Black Butler, which is like pretty much the only things I know about Black Butler come from his bit. His bit is basically that he starts watching Black Butler, and the more he watches of the show, the more his masculinity up and leaves him, until his testicles literally start packing a bag and walking out. It's funnier if you hear Uncle Yo say it. But anyway.
I find it silly because the original Black Butler manga, I think, was published in a shonen magazine.
I think you're giving it too much thought. It was funny in the routine, that's all, because apparently they drink a lot of tea on Black Butler or something, I don't know.
They do, but yeah, I mean, you haven't seen Black Butler. The first season is the first season is very good. Third season is very good. The OVAs are pretty good. The second season it doesn't exist.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that I now know this, so when I do finally watch Black Butler, because it'll eventually happen, I'm armed with knowledge.
Yes.
Sal, what you been doing this week?
I've been kind of shocked and grotesque from trying to help all the high school students survive the Heavenly Host Elementary School in the game Corpse Party, which got released on PC last week.
Whoa, I had no idea where you were going with that. I thought, wait, he's helping high school children deal with... I was really confused. And then when I found out it was a video game, it's like, oh, thank God. Okay.
Yeah.
Because if you were doing some, actual intervention sort of thing, I don't know if I would have been prepared for that. Not that I have anything against, people doing interventions and charity work. That's all great. It's just I wasn't prepared to talk about it. So you're enjoying Corpse Party, I take it?
Yeah. Yeah, because originally I think we got the game here on PSP first, but the version we got was actually the first remake of it for the PC, so, which is surprisingly different from the original in terms of the extra chapters, the voice actors, and the fact that there's more bad endings in this version than the previous version.
So it's a horror visual novel, basically?
I wouldn't say visual novel. I would say it's a horror an interactive 2D game, because you're just walking around trying to collect items, help your way get through the school while dodging all the ghosts that can basically possess you and make you do really messed up things to other people.
But there's no RPG combat or anything like that, right?
No. However, the when you play it, the interface looks like an RPG, because you have the isometric view of the and the 2D sprites walking around.
See, that would just annoy me, because I'd be like, it kind of looks like an RPG, but I'm not killing stuff. Why?
Yeah.
So.
It was because the original game, which was from the 90s, was made an RPG Maker.
Really? Seriously?
And that one surprisingly actually had an RPG battle for when you had to confront the final, like the spirit behind the haunting. But in the later versions, they just stuck to a more traditional way of how to put the spirit to rest.
Okay, I'm going to read up on this game now. I probably am not going to play it right now, but now I'm just curious about how this 1990s RPG Maker game became like a thing. I have to know more about this. I'm sorry, Sally, you were going to say further?
I was saying, and I think thanks to the remakes, like I think starting with the PSP one, like the game ended up getting also a couple sequels, like Corpse Party Book of Shadows and Corpse Party Blood Drive.
Wasn't Book of Shadows also the name of that like Silent Hill dungeon crawler?
Oh yeah, that was Book of Memories, I think.
Oh, okay. Books are all the same.
Yeah.
Okay, so Lifesong done anything new this week?
I'm super boring this week. I just barely finished all the anime that I'm watching like an hour before the podcast.
Well, maybe you can help me with something, because apparently you play something called Blade and Soul. What is that?
It's a Korean MMO. Got released in English a few months ago now. I've been playing it with some friends. It's like I keep telling myself that I'm quitting MMOs, and then the one that I really wanted to play from years ago gets released in English, and it's like a 5-year-old game, but it just got released, and so I've been spending a lot of what spare time I have that's not on anime. I've been spending on that game.
Could you just say, because the only MMO I've really played really played at all, really, is WoW. So could you just very briefly go over how it compares to something like WoW?
The big difference is that instead of like the point-and-click combat, it's got like an action combat system to it. And other than that, it's if you know the term wuxia, it's like a wuxia setting as opposed to like high fantasy.
Okay. I at least vaguely know what that is. So.
Okay. Yeah, I mean those are your major differences.
Okay, because it's become one of those things where people talk about Blade and Soul like everyone already knows what it is, and I was like, I missed this somehow. So
yeah, the reason the really big thing that's really popular with it is that it's got a competitive sort of esport aspect to it. That I think that NC Soft is hoping it's going to pick up. I don't know if it will, but that's a big thing in Korea at least. So that's part of why it's been getting so much attention.
Mm. Well, they're huge. They're huge into the esports there.
Yeah.
Just say that just seems like almost like a racist thing to say about Koreans. Like, boy, they sure love their esports, but it's kind of
you know what?
true.
It's a universal thing now. I mean, you can watch it on ESPN, and I think ESPN has its own website for esports now. So.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I look back at it and I'm like, that thought I had when I was a teenager that I should just play video games for a living. I actually could have done that.
You were just born a little bit too early. It's a shame.
Yeah, a little bit.
And not Korean.
That doesn't help.
Yeah. Oh well. Okay, so I guess we should move on to our anime, since as per usual, we do have a pretty long list to get through, although it may be getting shorter soon. Ooh. Ominous.
Uh-oh. And done.
We shall see. Okay, starting with Big Order Episode 3, and this episode kind of had an elephant in the room that made it impossible to discuss anything else about the episode, which is apparently one of the orders who's in charge, the group of 10 or whatever, she has like a little rabbit ear ribbon thingy, and AG touches her ribbon, and that gets her pregnant somehow. But
she did say that it would happen.
She did. She warned us. I gotta give her credit. But not only does it get her pregnant, she gets immediately pregnant, and like her belly sticks out and that sort of thing. And okay, first of all, since I've given birth, I think I'm an authority on this sort of thing now. That's not where babies come from. And second of all, why would her order work that way? Because I don't think anybody else's order has these insane conditions on it, like, oh, you'll get superpowers, but you'll also get pregnant if someone touches your hair ribbon. Like, why does her? I don't get it. I'm really confused right now. What did you think, Life?
I'm confused too. I'm hoping they'll give it a little more of an explanation next week. I mean, I think the explanation was her Miko powers awakened, and that's how Miko powers work. And so since her Miko powers were at 1 billion times their normal strength thanks to her order wish, instant pregnancy. I don't know. I was kind of just dumbfounded when that happened. I'm like,
it's amazing
I still
to
don't
me.
really know what to think.
It's amazing to me that you managed to piece together a kind of logic that almost makes sense for why that happened.
Yeah, I was trying really hard to make sense of it, so I'm glad to hear that it almost got there.
The question, here's the thing: what if the baby inside of her isn't a human baby, but something else?
That wouldn't even be surprising.
You know what it will be? It'll be like a little chibi Agi who has its own little chibi dominator, and then it'll become like big Agi versus little Agi, and because the little Agi like is a dominator, but he also needs diapers change. And, okay, I would like that show, but
you know what? I won't even rule that out at this point.
Can't rule anything out. But other than the very weird pregnancy thing, which is kind of what everybody was talking about this past week. There's also the fact that I was complaining last week that I don't think the way they explain Eiji's power is consistent, and I had the same thought this week, because there was that part where the ceiling was collapsing, and Eiji's like, oh no, my domain isn't big enough, the ceiling is going to collapse. But the thing is, even if the ceiling collapses, he shouldn't get hurt, because his domain will protect him, right? And Rin shouldn't really care, because she's immortal anyway. But then suddenly this is a big deal, and then Miko lady has to come out and be like, come, I will lead you to safety. It's like, why is this even a problem?
Well, I think Rin's part, at least, is easy to say. It is consistent. She wants to kill him herself. She can't let him die by accident. She has to be the one that causes his death. That's kind of her whole ridiculous, but...
Yeah, but, why would Eiji think he was in danger in that situation?
I think that he has to establish his domain before it really functions, and I guess when he's moving through a new location, he can't do that. I mean, that's... Go ahead.
But the thing is, we see, the geometric pattern around him, and I thought that was supposed to represent his domain. I get he can, kind of tap an area and say, okay, this is my land now, I own this. But I thought that perimeter that's around his body is also his domain, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that also, a couple of things that I'm kind of just guessing at based off what we have seen. I don't think he can, I don't think he can actually control his power very well. I mean, we already know that he accidentally destroyed... Japan when it awakened. And
accidentally married Rin for no apparent reason.
Yeah. And now accidentally made someone pregnant and they're going to have a baby. So he's not really at top of his game.
Yeah, I think I'm too intrigued by the weirdness of the show to want to drop it anytime soon, but I really, really hope there turns out to be some sort of consistency to all this, and because I'm really confused. I mean, forget even the other characters' orders. I'm just confused by how the main character's power works at this point.
I think that the one thing that I really took away from the episode, which, because last episode too, I was complaining about how there's no real limits to the powers. And, I stopped and realized, okay, well, there's no real limits to his power necessarily, but there is a limit, and that limit is he doesn't have a clue what he's doing.
That's true.
He's completely he can order them all to do whatever he wants, but he has no idea what to order them to do. And, it's okay. That's not what I was expecting or where I thought this would go, but it kind of works. I was going to say, I think it has the potential to be interesting. It hasn't necessarily done anything necessarily all that interesting yet, but...
Yeah, because, I found myself thinking after this episode, why doesn't he just tell Rin if he can make her do anything? Not only can you not hurt me, but you can't, help other people hurt me or something. Or whatever. But he didn't think to say that to her. That's the only reason. So.
Yeah, and I think that, his power, I think he could even use it to cure his sister, if I understand how it works.
That would kind of be... a really lame, 11th hour twist. If they're just don't you know, you could have just commanded her to be healthy all along.
Yeah, well, I think the part of it is he has to really understand what he's doing. And I mean, I could kind of get that, my comparison would be to a book I've read where this guy is trying to save the world and he ultimately becomes the big evil force of the universe after getting, ultimate power for, a moment. And in that moment where he's trying to save the world, he just screws everything up because he doesn't actually know how to save the world. And I've kind of got that same feeling from Eiji, and I don't know, they're not selling it that hard, so I don't really know where they're going with it, but I'm at least willing to give them the benefit of the doubt.
And I'm pretty sure that this is not going to happen, but I'm kind of hoping that Big Order Episode 4 is just the whole episode is actually just devoted to her giving birth, and maybe Rin and the other chick can be fighting in the background, and I could just be sitting there and be like, yes, that's accurate. You know, no one else in the world would enjoy that episode, but I would.
It would be interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to Kiznaiver, episode 4, and I found myself losing patience with Kiznaiver a little bit. I felt like this episode was another one, just kind of a placeholder until they go to summer camp or wherever where things are supposed to happen, because after the last episode, I thought they were probably going to have to do a lot of work to stop the masochist from hurting himself and therefore hurting all of them, or, you know, getting them hurt and that sort of thing. And they're just chilling out for pretty much the whole episode, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it kind of wasn't what I expected and wasn't really what I wanted. Wait, LB and Sal, you guys are not watching Kiznaiver, right?
Oh, I'm watching it.
You are? I'm sorry. Okay. So, Sal, what do you think of this one?
I'm kind of hoping that maybe they're just, like I said before, they're just building up to the summer camp thing. Though the one thing I'm interested in is, like, what are they gonna do with the two bullies that were stealing the main guy's money in the beginning? Because it looks like they have some sort of Kiznaiver mark on their forehead.
They got put into, like, the crappy Kiznaiver project.
Yeah.
Like the low budget one that couldn't afford to be, like, unobtrusive and stuff. But yeah, I am, I guess, a little interested about what's happening with them. And we did get some, I guess, confirmation in this episode that Sonozaki and Agata, that Sonozaki was the girl we saw in the first episode, although I think everybody pretty much assumed that.
Yeah.
Unless it was like
what
a
I'm
twin
interested in is, like, what did she do to have the Kiznaiver removed from her body?
Well, you know, we don't know for sure that the Kiznaiver, that they're all connected. Like, we know that the 7 main characters are connected, but, like, those other 2, they might have their own little network.
Oh, yeah, true.
Life, what'd you think of this one?
I liked it. It didn't move particularly fast, and it didn't do anything particularly interesting with the masochist character. But I like the way they're building up the characters in a general sense. Like, Chidori was really, I think that's her name, was really cute in this episode. And the way you could see that, what is his name? I had them all memorized before the podcast, and now I'm losing them.
Which main guy?
The muscle-headed guy. What is his name?
Oh, shoot, I can't remember either. I want to say Varuna, but that doesn't sound right. No, that's not right.
Not it.
Something with a T. Tengu?
Tenga. That's what it was. Tenga. Yeah, you know, they've got him sort of pairing up with her, and you've got the main character, the emotionless guy pairing up with Sonozaki. I don't know. I think they're setting up interesting things. I mean, all I can do is speculate at this point, though.
Yeah, like, one disadvantage of watching so many things at the same time is I think your standards kind of change, whereas normally I would like to say I'm kind of more of a fan of the slow burn, and I'd rather things not go so fast. When you're watching, like, 20 shows, you do start to get in the habit of thinking, okay, this episode better accomplish something, you know? So.
Yeah, and I think it did establish stuff, and the girl who has no other purpose other than to be really mean in any given scene. She had a really good burn in the middle of the episode.
What did she say again? Is that the scene with the used to be fat kid?
Yeah, the used to be fat kid is sitting there, and he's like, "You rank pretty high on my charts because I don't care about personality." And then she pretty much, and he says something about her breasts, and then she pretty much returns the comment, "Well, you had bigger than I did in middle school."
So, I don't know. I that was sort of funny, but because I don't really like either of them, I was just kind of like, you two morons insult each other. See if I care.
I find them, I find them interesting. I'm curious to see where it's going.
Oh yeah, it's also funny how that guy is jealous of the masochist guy since he's naturally a pretty boy, whereas he had to lose weight to become a pretty boy.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too, like just the way the emotionless protagonist, I can't think of his name now.
Agata.
But the way what was that?
Agata, I think.
Agata? Okay, Agata, I'm going to call him that. The way Agata is just like, he is curious about everyone's personality. And they had that whole bit with, what does everyone mean? And he defined it in the beginning of the episode as everyone I care about. And, that threw an interesting little twist just into the theme of things. Like, I'm very curious to see what they're going to do with it. I've just been feeling that way since the beginning of the show. Like, there's a statement that is going to be made here, and I'm just wondering what it is.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we're probably going to have to wait until next episode before we have something meatier to discuss, because this is just kind of like character interaction while we prepare for the next plot twist. So. Okay, so that brings us to The Lost Village, Episode 5, and it looks like some kind of reveal is probably around the corner. I'm kind of in the same boat as I was last week, where, like, I don't even know where to start discussing this episode, because there's just so much going on, and it's all so weird. Like, for one thing, you know, the two military people and, the guy who doubts everyone, is he Speedster? Is that what he calls himself? Maybe. Anyway, you know, the guy with the glasses.
No, that's the Speedstar was Mikado's friend that came with him.
Mitsumune's friend.
Thank you, Mitsumune's friend. The other guy is I think he's supposed to be older. He's like a businessman that quit his job. The one who's doubtful of everyone. The one who wears the blue outfit. Yeah, I know it's hard to keep track of all of them. But yeah, he's a different character.
Okay, but I noticed that he and the military guys, you know, break off into their own, you know, conspiracy group. But then who else is in their group but Love Pod? Like, why would you let her into any group?
Yeah, she just wants to torture and kill everyone that she thinks is gonna screw them over.
I think that everyone in that group is probably on the same wavelength, and that's kind of going to be the point.
Is anyone really on the same wavelength as Love Pod?
The two military otaku, they might be.
Okay. Let's see. What else was there to say about this episode? And I think any chance of it being, like, you know, not supernatural is now completely gone out the window. So
the giant thing that appeared at the end of the episode, like, what was that?
I'm actually not entirely convinced that there's... Well, let me say this. There's probably a supernatural element, but I'm not convinced it's all supernatural.
Well, yeah, that's true. It would almost... There's a part of me that just wanted this to be not supernatural at all, because then that would just be super creepy that, you know, like there was some, I don't know, murderer going on who killed the whole village, but it could really be mostly mundane with one supernatural element, or it could be all supernatural. We really don't know at this point. We just know that something supernatural is definitely going on. So, Sal, what did you think of this episode overall?
Oh man, where to begin? Like, all right, we all know that. Yeah, interesting to see what's gonna happen next week, because, you know, everyone's already like having this distrust. I mean, it was to the point where Lion had to make up the ghost story lie just to have everyone go off topic and go their merry way.
But it seemed like she was only partially lying, because first she says, I see dead people, and then later she tells Mitsumune, actually, I can't see dead people, and then later she's like, I see people who are going to die, actually, and I think we're supposed to think maybe she was truthful about that last part, but with the show, who knows?
Like, maybe when she saw Mitsumune kind of vanish, maybe that's the signal that tells her, oh, this person's gonna die soon.
Yeah, I think that's what we're supposed to assume.
And then there's that thing at the end. Like, what was that? Like, what is that thing? It's like,
I think they're.
Is it like some sort of actual creature? Is it just them hallucinating because of something in the atmosphere in the village that drives people insane? Or
yeah, see, I'm not actually entirely convinced it's 100% going to be supernatural, and the hallucinations aspect. I mean, I don't know if it's even important at this point. The one thing that we've really confirmed in this episode, I think, is that they are all hallucinating.
Well, they all definitely saw a different thing. Everybody who was near the cave mentioned seeing or sensing something different, right? So
right, and they've been hearing different things too. Like, they were all describing the sound that they were hearing, like the bear. One of the characters says it sounded like a sea lion, and then, you know, like the guy who's always upset at no one listening to him, the one who splits off with the crazy otaku, he said it sounded like laughter. I thought that was interesting.
Come to think of it, what if they end up pulling like a higurashi, where there's some sort of substance or something that's causing everyone to act like this?
Yeah, and it's only because I've watched Higurashi that I'm suspicious of something like that. But yeah, I won't be shocked. And I'll also point out, Higurashi was supernatural and science fiction. So there's no guessing when that's what's going on.
It was weird, because like, Higurashi is like the supernatural part was mostly not what was causing everyone to go insane, but it was like the element to help everyone resolve the situation.
Right.
I can't chime in because I haven't seen that show yet. Okay, but hopefully next week we'll find out what the hell Misaki is, and we'll be in better shape than we are today, I guess. So, okay. I'm going to move on to ReZero Episode 5. Another show I kind of found myself losing a little patience with, but I think that may just be me this week. Maybe I was just in a bitter, impatient sort of mood. It's not the anime's fault. But, and like, you were totally right last week that, Subaru was killed in his sleep. I just, like, I think sometimes I'm only, like, paying half attention to these shows, and I don't actually realize it until later when I talk about it with someone, and I'm like, oh, I didn't notice that incredibly obvious thing. But anyway, so yeah, somebody's definitely killing him, even though he has a nice new save point now. But the only problem with this episode is that I had is that it focuses a lot on Ram and Rem, who I feel like I'm supposed to care about, but I just don't. So it felt again like a lot of just padding time to me. Someone else talk.
Life.
I like Rem. I don't know. I think she's kind of adorable. So I appreciated the episode.
Okay. Any theories as to who our evil assassin is?
I think it's probably someone we haven't met yet. I don't know for sure. I'm just thinking of motivations, and we've more or less confirmed that the Count and his maids don't really have a reason to kill Subaru. Beatrice, I can't think of any reason why she'd be killing him. They've kind of shown her watching him curiously a couple times. It wouldn't make much sense if it were her. I joke with some friends that it might be Amelia, but I think that's ridiculous. I don't know.
Maybe it's Satella. Maybe, like, when Amelia is, like, really hungry and sleepy, she turns into Satella, the evil witch, and she runs around killing people.
That is what I've been joking about with my friends. I think that they won't do that, but I'm not sure. It could be any other characters having an evil version of themselves too. Like they mentioned, they heavily hinted that Rem and Ram are demons.
Yeah, they did. That's true. That would make sense. One more thing about ReZero. I didn't remember from the last episode what the promise you made with Amelia was, and I know it got kind of undone by the time reset. But he kept saying, "Oh, I've got to make my promise with Amelia again." And I was like, "What the hell was the promise?" He just promised to
that they were going to go out on a date.
Oh, LB, you're watching this one too, right?
Yes, I am.
I'm so sorry. You specifically told me, and I didn't. Anyway, okay. So what did you think of this episode?
I agree with you that it felt like I like the twin maids. I think they're cute, but it did feel like they were just killing time up until the epilogue when he got like horribly massacred again.
He got super murdered.
Yeah, so I didn't mind the episode so much because, like I said, I like the twin maids. I think they're kind of cute. So, it wasn't so bad. But I wasn't super interested until they got to that epilogue and he got, sliced up again. And for the record, my theory is that we're going to see Elsa make a return, which at least that's what I really hope. I just think that she's awesome and I think that she's going to be making a return to the series.
Yeah, I definitely think we have not seen the last of her. And it seemed like he was maybe cut in the stomach, so that would be consistent with her MO. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have a question. Did she show any ability to use wind magic or hit someone from a distance?
I don't remember her having wind magic, but I remember her blade skills being so freakishly powerful that it wouldn't shock me if she were able to swing and cause a wind gush that slashed your stomach open.
Well, I mean, she didn't with the initial hit when she first hit Subaru or whoever first hit Subaru. He loses his arm, but his stomach is fine at that point. It's afterwards that he starts. He gets brutally destroyed, basically, but. I rewatched that little segment where he gets hit, and it looks like he's just getting hit by an invisible force.
I have a question about the epilogue sequence that I'd like to ask everybody, and I'm curious because I don't know if it was just because I didn't get a good look or what, but when he's knocked down to the floor and he's bleeding out, he looks up and he sees something laying on the shelf in front of the window next to him. Did anybody?
That's his arm.
That's his arm?
That was his arm.
Okay, I couldn't tell what that was. I wasn't sure if it was another body or what.
No, that was part of him. He was looking up at it bleeding on him.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. I was just curious about that.
Yeah, see, I didn't even make that part out. I just thought, oh, he's bleeding out and he's looking up sadly. So I'm gonna have great dreams tonight, thanks to you pointing that out.
Sorry. I rewatched the scene multiple times because I was like, I want to get a hint of what's going on.
Yeah, but my theory is that it's Elsa. I'm probably wrong, but that's my theory at least.
Okay, we'll continue watching, see if you're right. Moving on to Flying Witch Episode 4, and hey, something happened in Flying Witch this week that perhaps we can talk about, because there is a curse that was put on someone that turned her into a... Is she a cat girl, or is she more of a fox girl? Or some kind of animal girl, anyway.
It's a dog girl, because Inu is in her name. And
you're right. Yeah, that's it. It's a doggy girl. And so we learned that the witches on the show are pretty powerful, and it's not all just, summoning crows and picking mandragoras, So I thought that was kind of cool that we found out these witches can do pretty intense things, even though I felt kind of sorry for the girl with the dog curse, because, she comes for a cure, and then when they finally meet up with Akane's like, oh, there is no cure, it just has to wear off. And apparently it's already been like a year. So I'm guessing it's not going to wear off anytime soon.
I think the moral of this story is don't get drunk with the Akane, was that her name?
Yeah.
Yeah, don't get drunk with her. It's a bad idea.
It's probably a bad idea to get drunk with Makoto, too. Whether or not for the same reasons remains to be seen.
Possibly.
What did you... I mean, it seems kind of silly to even say, did you like Flying Witch? Because it's just like a little bundle of happiness. But, I mean, did you sort of like that they did something a little different in this episode, I guess?
I love it. I'm enjoying every moment of it. I think my favorite part is still the Chinatsu, is that her name?
I think you're right, yeah.
And all of her reactions to things. I can't even think of one specifically, but I know she had several great ones in this episode.
Yeah, and one little thing I also liked about this episode is at the beginning when they're at the carnival, or the fair, wherever they are, they go into a haunted house, and then I'm like, oh, they're about to go into a haunted house, and then they immediately run out of it, and we don't see it, and I was like, oh, well, of course they're not going to show the inside of the haunted house. This is Flying Witch. They don't do scary stuff, So I just thought it was funny that they had like an implied haunted house.
I think it would have been funny to go through there and see the I can't think of the main character's name.
Makoto?
But Makoto, yeah, see her going through and just like you have witch stuff and have her point out how fake it all is.
Yeah, that seems like something she would do. Although actually she seems kind of naive, so maybe she would just be like, wow, people really think witches do that? That's so weird.
Yeah, actually that would probably be her reaction.
Yeah. Okay, so Flying Witch continuing to be super fun and just not a lot to say about it, but it's cool. We like it that way. Moving on to Joker Game Episode 5, which was a huge step up from 4, in my opinion. But I'll confess, I watched this episode twice, not because the whole episode was so confusing to me, but the explanation at the end, where they explained what the point of this whole gambit was, that really eluded me the first time. Like, what? A diplomat is doing what? And they needed to what? Why? And then even now, even after I watched it again, I kind of have a better handle on what happened, it's still a little bit confusing to me.
I think it's just kind of convoluted. I mean, nobody would actually do that.
Well, there is that aspect of it too, but okay, here's what I don't get. Maybe I'm missing something, Life, and you can correct me. But the problem is that the diplomat wasn't encoding his transmissions, so information was leaking. So they had to do something to prove that this diplomat was not trustworthy and was leaking things so they could get the diplomat, taken out of position or something, I guess.
That wasn't what it was about. It was a power grab. Yuki was trying to prove that he was more capable than their foreign spy agency or their foreign allies. I think that was the basic
ploy. So the reason why I didn't end up understanding what the point was because the part where he explained what the point of it was, he wasn't actually giving the real reason.
Yeah, no, it was. I think if I understood it, and I did only watch it once, but I think if I understood it, the point was Yuki was trying to discredit their allies and gain more power so that he had better control over the situation.
Right, because it's just, well, what I didn't understand, it's like, okay, if the diplomat in question is sending unencoded transmissions, like, that in and of itself should be evidence that something is wrong. Like, But it would be one thing. It would be one thing if you were just like, like, I don't know, hooking up with prostitutes and like babbling state secrets or something. That might be harder to prove. But if he's actually like sending transmissions and not bothering to encode them, like, why would this? That would just be kind of self-evident, I think. So I don't know. I was just really. I'm still a little confused, honestly. Like, I mean, it makes sense to me that Yuki would be playing games with the other factions within the Japanese government that kind of do similar things. It's just maybe I'm just dumb in the way the show's logic works, but I think it could have been explained better.
Yeah, no, I think that I don't know. Maybe it could have been explained better. I think the bigger problem is just that it was a convoluted thing. Like, nobody would actually have done that as a super power grab, which at the same time is it made me stop and smile at, wow, that's a magnificently wonderful, ridiculous thing for him to pull off.
Yeah, and also I was kind of thinking throughout the whole episode that, like, when they injected the spy with the truth serum, I just thought immediately, oh, Yuki totally trained him for what to do when this happens. And I wonder if the whole series is going to be like that, where anytime anything happens to a spy, you're just thinking in the back of your mind, okay, well, how did Yuki, like, counter-program them to get around this? Because it's kind of hard to. Yeah,
I think that if the show really wants to actually surprise me at this point, if it's going to go off the chart, it's going to need to break away from that Yuki is always right thing, and I don't know that it's going to do that.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, I think he's a fun character and I like him, but at this point it just makes the show really predictable, because even if you don't, Yeah,
I was going to say, if you stop and you assume that he's right and that he's figured this all out, then you can use that to reverse engineer everything that's going on.
Yeah, like, even if, I mean, I don't usually watch or read mysteries in general. I'm just not that big a mystery fan. So I'm not used to really trying to figure it out while it's going along. But even if I can't really figure out the specifics, once I know that, the good guys, quote unquote, because good guys is kind of hard to define here. I mean, but once you know that they have it all figured out, it's, it's just not surprising when you figure out how exactly they have it figured out.
Right.
I just want to comment that I thought it was cool that they acknowledged that there were different styles of Morse code keying, because Morse code is cool, and I like that they bothered to do their research. So yeah.
So that was accurate. I was wondering that. I don't know how Morse code works.
No, my dad is a ham license and knows Morse code. He actually taught me Morse code when I was like 10, but I've forgotten most of it.
Oh, cool.
But during World War II, it was actually different. I don't know what I want to call them. Telegraphers had different styles with the key, so it would be difficult to kind of fake a message and pretend it was from someone else, because you'd have to be able to get their keying style down perfectly, and for people who listen to Morse code day in and day out, they can tell the difference. So
wouldn't someone who's heavily drugged have a hard time matching their own style? That was maybe not, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I did think of the fact that okay, well, if the SOS message to D agency is he has to code it back with no errors whatsoever, that's got to be that's a lot of pressure, first of all. And second of all, he's probably not in the best shape to do that. But then I was like, okay, it's an anime. Maybe I need to give it some slack that way.
I don't know. I feel like if there's ever an anime where it's an anime is not a valid excuse, this is it.
You have a point. And see, now I really want to read the book. We freaking can't, because it isn't translated.
Yeah, I know. After the episode ended, I started looking around, and it's like there's no signs of it in English or ever going to be in English.
Okay, so, like, everybody who's listening to this, go watch a lot of Joker Game and, like, buy Joker Game products so people will think it makes sense to translate the book. Because, yeah.
I guess if the book were to come over, it could be done through Viz's publishing brand. I think it was Haiku Sosoro or something like that, because they're the ones that actually translate actual novels.
Well, have they done actual novels, or do they just do light novels?
Well, they did release the novel All You Need Is Kill, which that was a novel.
I like how we've adopted the term novel
versus light novel. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, but, well, the possibility does exist, I think, that the Joker Game book, or books, I think it's actually several, but we shall see. Okay, so still good on Joker Game for bringing it back after episode 4 kind of made me like, seriously, show? Okay. Moving on to Twin Star Exorcists, episode 4, and I'm beginning to think this is a very, very competently done show I just don't have that much interest in, because I just I just wasn't that interested throughout this whole episode. And there were things I specifically liked about it, too. Like, I liked the fact that once Rokuro realized that his friend was in danger, he just went to Benio immediately. He didn't do any, like, oh, I should ask Benio, but I don't know, I don't like her, or any stupid posturing. He just immediately was like, look, my friend is in danger, I need your help right now, it's very important. Like, I can point to a lot of things about the show I like, I just find I don't actually care that much. LB, I'm reckoning you probably felt differently.
Yeah, actually, I'm still really digging this show. I thought that this episode had a lot of really good character and relationship development. The big payoff for me was the last couple of minutes when Benio and Rokuro were talking and having that private conversation. So, yeah, the action sequences, I probably could have taken or leaving. They were okay. They were typical shonen action, but I thought that the development of the characters and the relationships in this series was just really well timed and just really well done in this case.
Yeah, it's so weird that, like, I'm certainly not going to disagree with you. I'm not going to point to anything and say, well, this was badly done, or this made me not care. Like, there's nothing specific I can point to. I just feel like I could stop watching it at this point and not miss it much. So I don't know what it is with me. Life, what about you?
Yeah, I do have a specific thing I can point to that's really frustrating me with the show, and it's the world building kind of stopped at the end of episode 2, and they haven't done anything else with it. There's some character, there is some character growth, and I do appreciate what they're doing with it, but it's just like there's certain things I expect them to establish, and right now we're kind of in generic shonen territory with what's going on with the world and why they even need to wipe out all of the monsters, or what they're even going to spend the show fighting. I mean, we don't know any of that right now, and I don't know. I'm just really annoyed that they aren't mixing in that world building with the rest of what's going on.
Yeah, I can see your point now that I think about it. Another thing about the way this whole story is set up is, okay, we know they're the twin star exorcists because supposedly eventually they will have a child together, and that child will be the exorcist to end all exorcists, who will, kill all the monsters for good, and then no one will get hurt by monsters anymore. But because they're in middle school, and I don't think it's going to be that kind of show, I think we can be pretty sure this child is not going to be conceived anytime soon. So it's kind of like the thing that makes them the twin star exorcists is something that's probably not going to happen for like 10 or 20 years.
Yeah, like they're
I'm sorry?
Go ahead. I think LB's trying to say something.
No, I was just laughing.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say, the story of this anime is obviously going to be about something else, and we don't even know what that is.
Yeah, because it's not going to be about their kid. Like, if I could just go on a little bit of a tangent, like, if there actually was a show about, like, two exorcists raising a child who was supposed to be, like, the be-all, end-all exorcist, that would be interesting to me, but because we just have... I don't know, I don't want to complain about anime having too many characters that are 14, because it's kind of like... There's also stuff like Joker Game. Like, if you look for variety, it is out there. It's just that... It's just that, I would probably like to watch a show about, raising your child who is also an exorcist, but this show is not going to give me that, so, well.
The closest thing you can get out of that is, like, in the movies, like Mamoru Soda's Wolf Children and Boy and the Beast. Like, those involve, like, raising a character and watching those characters grow up.
Yeah, I actually haven't seen Wolf Children, even though it sounds like it has my name written all over it, just because, I don't know, just like the stars haven't aligned yet for me to see it, but I'm kind of... I prepare to savor it like a fine wine.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know if I'm going to be continuing with Twin Star Exorcists. Well, I probably will, but if it's the kind of thing if I wasn't on the podcast, I probably wouldn't, But it's like, I don't mind watching it. I'm just, like, waiting for some reason to feel compelled to continue. So, okay, so speaking of things I do not feel compelled to follow, Macross Delta, Episode 5. And, Life and Sal, why don't you compare notes on this episode while I get a glass of water? And I'm actually literally going to get a glass of water. That's not...
All right.
I'll be right back.
So, Life, like, what do you think of this week's Macross?
I'm finding myself in territory where they're throwing around terms, and I'm like, I have no idea what these mean. So I had to spend a lot of time researching the episode, and I'm kind of frustrated that, I think it might even be what I know of Macross Frontier doesn't apply, and I keep trying to compare notes, and I just end up confused. But they had the whole proto-culture thing, and maybe they explained it in Frontier. Maybe they even explained it a little bit in Delta.
I think surprisingly, like, yeah, the pro culture thing was like a big thing in the other series. Like, long story short, they're like this ancient race that were behind a lot of big stuff in the universe. They were even the ones that created the human race and the Zentradi race, along with a couple other alien races.
So like they're like the ancestors of life, and the Winder men or whatever are claiming that they're part of they're the original or something.
Yeah, and I think that the device behind the VAR syndrome could be another permaculture device that they just happen to have in their kingdom.
Yeah,
so
the ruin or whatever. So they have some ancient proto-culture device.
Okay, I'm hydrated.
I think the story is really... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, okay, I'm hydrated, so you can feel free to stop anytime.
Yeah, I just got one more thing to say. I found that the story is really hard to follow as someone who doesn't know the original Macross.
Yeah, I can see what you mean, but I guess hopefully the angle of Hayato and Freya will make up for it, like once the war actually starts.
I do like the characters a lot.
Mm-hmm. So I think if anything, that'll be able to help you keep track of the show for now.
Oh yeah, I'm still enjoying it a lot. I'm just they throw out these big important terms, and I'm like, I know what that word means, but I don't know what it means for Macross.
Yeah.
What do you think? You enjoy it?
Mm-hmm. Like, kind of, especially how they went through the whole media angles. Okay, Freya is part of that race. Is she a spy? When in reality she isn't, because she just smuggled. She just snuck out of her planet to get to the Ragna. So
right.
So it'll be interesting to see how the character relationships shape out next week.
Yep. Next week I'll drink more water. Okay.
Yes. So now on to Kuma Miko. Karen?
Hey, that's my job. What would the podcast be if you didn't have me monotonously saying, and now on to the show, and now on to the show? Anyway, Kuma Miko. I realized the other day, in part with talking with Life, that my expectations for the show were just too high based on like episodes 1 and 2. Because every episode since then, I've just been like, this isn't what I wanted. This isn't what I wanted. And this episode actually had cute bits and jokes that worked, like the bit about Natsu being like a scary bear to try to discipline the boy. And some other jokes, like Machi completely misinterpreting what she was supposed to read between the lines about Hibiki and Yoshino's relationship and that sort of thing. But it's just like, I want it to be more like the first 2 episodes with Natsu and Machi interacting pretty much exclusively, and with him trying to stop her from going to college. And I don't care about these other characters and their petty little problems. LB, what'd you think of this one?
That's a good question. Let me pull up my notes real fast. I didn't have any problems with this. I still don't like Hibiki. I get why she's a jerk to Yoshio, because, she likes him and all that good stuff. I still don't understand why she was just randomly bitchy and violent towards Machi last episode. I just don't get that. So I still don't.
Maybe because she was locked in the bear cage a lot as a child.
Maybe, but
I think she's just awkward. I mean, I think that's just her personality.
Yeah, but I still don't like her. I mean, I was able to tolerate her a bit more this episode, but because I did find a lot of the jokes funny, and the whole typical she likes him, and I like that they went in a slightly different direction with it, and they made Machi have a starring role in that whole scene. With her big payoff being her trying to strangle Yoshio. I thought that was hilarious. But yeah, so overall, I really enjoyed the episode. I thought it was a big step up from last week, but yeah, still don't like Hibiki.
Yeah, I was actually wondering what you thought of this one, because I knew you didn't like her. So, Life, what'd you think?
I thought it was funny. I was glad to see that it actually, like, the jokes were all there and they all worked. Like, it was like the first episode where I was like, oh no, I bet that was better in the manga, or I know that was better in the manga, and I was like, oh no, this was a good representation. I like this was funny. They didn't mess up the joke, and I was happy about that.
Okay, let me ask you both you guys a question though. The reason why that whole shopping trip in episode 4 happened in the first place is apparently because Yoshio asked Hibiki to do that. Why is he asking her to take Machi clothes shopping? I don't understand why.
Because because they are small town hicks, and she's the only person he could think of. I mean, I've been like, that's kind of just the answer to everything in this show.
But why does everything revolve around Machi's clothes? I don't know.
That's a good question.
Oh, well, maybe in the next episode it won't be about Machi's clothes for once.
You know, I think my favorite part of the episode was actually the fact that Natsu is sitting there and he's the only rational character in the entire second half of the episode, while he's trying to get Machi to understand that Hibiki has a crush on Yoshio.
Yeah, that was cute. LB, were you saying something before? Did I cut you off?
Yeah, I was just about to say, my theory there is that the reason why it revolves around Machi is because they're from such a small village, and she's the starring shrine priestess, that she is basically their version of an idol. And so they have nothing better to do than to dress her up and to shower her with attention and that kind of good stuff. So that was my line of thinking. And the reason why Yoshio asked Hibiki to do the favor for him is just because he was trying to do something nice for Machi and give her, time away from the village with someone that he thought was her friend or something like that. But that was basically my line of thinking, and it made sense in my head, so I didn't question.
Yeah, it probably would have come off more like that in the actual show if we hadn't seen Yoshio behave basically like a sex offender up until this point. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, one big thing that really, even though the episode kind of nailed the jokes, is we all don't really like Yoshio because of our past experiences with him in the anime, and that does kind of set the tone for anything else that happens with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Okay, so we're going to move on to Bakuon episode 5, and this definitely generated a fair amount of discussion, at least on my Twitter timeline, because this episode had some very, very interesting fan service. Fan service on a level that I think is actually causing some people to drop the show, although I'm not. I guess what I want to say about that fan service scene is when it first started happening, I kind of raised an eyebrow and was like, oh, no, seriously? But then, the more I thought about it, the more I was like, this is so something they would actually do, though. And then it just I couldn't fault it for being out of character. And then it just became funny that something so stupid was completely in character on this, meta level. So while I can kind of understand why some people were creeped out by it, it did not bother me. Life, I think you had a similar response.
Yeah,
right?
that was pretty much exactly my experience with it too. I was kind of watching it the whole time, just as long as Osada doesn't get in on this, there's absolutely nothing out of character about it. She doesn't. She just kind of, raises an eyebrow, looks at them like they're ridiculous, and it doesn't get involved. And then the two characters that, that would do something ridiculous like that are the ones that are driving it.
Yeah. Hane is so innocent that Jesus visits her. Literally.
Right.
So she would do something like that and not even think it's sexual in nature. And Rin is just little Miss Me Too. So.
And then you have Hijiri. Is that her name?
The Ojo-sama?
The Ojo-sama, yeah. And she's all calling it an American car wash. with her crazy ideas of America and gangs and.
Yeah, I'm sure she has an interesting worldview. I'm not quite sure how to put my finger on it. Just
yeah.
LB, what'd you think of this one?
I agree that now that you mention it, I hadn't even really thought about it on that level. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't out of character. I didn't think it was really needed, though. So it did kind of bug me. I mean, not enough that I'm gonna drop the show in disgust or anything like that. But it didn't feel like it really needed to be there. So it just was one of those things where it's okay, whatever. I mean, I'm not against fan service of any kind. I like plenty of fan service series, but it just felt really random to me.
Yeah, I could see that maybe they I don't know. It could have been less over the... No, wait, what am I saying? It should be over the top if they were going to do it at all. I don't know. I can't quite figure out how to put it, but I could definitely see the argument that, it was too far in some direction or something.
I don't know. It being too ridiculous doesn't fit in my head at all after they met Jesus on the side of the road and he gave them the Suzuki Cup, which saved Rin's life in the beginning of the episode when she decides that she's God and wants to do a speed test. I don't know. It all just kind of works for me.
Yeah. Also, another thing about this episode is there's the teacher who's now going to become their advisor for the club because she's got incriminating photos of them. I mean, they've got incriminating photos of her. Did that strike you as weird or out of character for the show in some way? Because that, again, that was another thing that was so over the top that I didn't mind it, but apparently some people didn't like that. LB?
Oddly enough, that didn't strike me as over the top. It just struck me as okay. Once they set up that she was, had driven all the way to Hokkaido just to drive off a ledge, which turned out to only be like 10 feet high. And then she got so depressed that she was drunk, that she got so depressed that she felt the need to drink herself stupid and reveal that she gets attracted to women when she gets drunk. At that point, I thought that it was pretty much just fair game. And it was just like, okay, you know what? They have incriminating photos of her now. Why not?
It's all good.
Yeah.
Anything further to say about this episode? I mean, there's other stuff that happened in this episode. It's just kind of overshadowed by boob car wash and drunk teacher taking liberties.
There was also the moment where with Osana, she kind of gets forgotten in the episode where she's all talking about poetically about Hokkaido, and I don't know, I like that scene. I like how it just the same thing with the fan service scene. I like how everything just kind of feels in character and stays in character the whole time.
Yeah, because the show actually, when it does things like that, it feels sincere to me. Like
right.
Like you're kind of thinking, all right, she's being a little over the top and cheesy, but she's also kind of right at the same time.
So. And she even acknowledges that she's being over the top and cheesy.
Yeah. Last show in our Senpai League, And You Thought There Was Never a Girl Online, Episode 4. Another show that's maybe starting to wear on my patience a little bit, because they introduced another girl who's starting in the game and is kind of glomming on to Rushian, and I really don't want to sit through a lot of Akko is jealous jokes, and I'm afraid we're going to go there. So I like parts of this episode. I like the fact that Akko was having difficulty dealing with her classmates, because now that they know she's like kind of sort of dating someone in a weird way, now they think that it's like totally okay to just talk to her whenever they feel like it and stuff, and I could sort of relate to that actually on a personal level, but I just feel like I'm just not optimistic about where this show is going. Life?
I'm not really sure where it's going either. It's kind of been a constant question in the back of my mind, but I've really enjoyed what it's done so far, and I don't know, I think the thing that I'm enjoying the most about it is like I keep seeing situations that they bring up, and it's like, normally in an MMO anime they would ignore that. They wouldn't actually bring, like at the beginning of the episode they heavily implied that this guild that that Rushian is considering joining basically wants him to give up his entire school life and do nothing but play the game. And then he turns around and he's real nice and friendly, and he's willing to help them, but you can't join my guild if you don't do that. and I've actually met people that really do play hardcore MMOs like that. I'd like to say I was never a part of that. I might have been.
So, Lifesong, are you suggesting that you were ever anything less than a full upstanding citizen?
I spend quite a bit of time on World of Warcraft.
Yeah, I think.
I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, and I think there are some aspects of the show I probably can't fully appreciate just because I don't play MMOs, and I'm okay with that. But it just means that it's better for a certain audience. That's all. LB, what was your take on this episode?
I thought it was fine. Who wants to bet the biggest amount of money that we all know exactly who this new girl actually is?
I don't think we want to bet money. I don't think we want to bet money on that because we'll all owe each other money. I don't know. I just don't think it's worth betting on.
We're all going to bet on the same character, I assume.
Exactly. So what's to harm. Anyways, but yeah, I thought it was a fine episode. I giggled when Akko was talking about how she had established herself as a loner, and she was angry that people thought it was now okay for them to come talk to her. I thought that was hilarious. I related to that totally. I spent a good chunk of my school life trying to establish that whole buffer zone around myself so that people wouldn't talk to me, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. So yeah, I totally related to that and giggled. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, I had a thing happen to me once in middle school where there was a rumor that started getting spread around that me and this other kid were dating, and a totally unsubstantiated rumor, as it turns out. But like all that day, I'm sorry?
An unfounded rumor in middle school? The devil, you say.
I know, right? But then, and I mean, I was an unpopular kid in middle school, not terribly surprising probably, but that day, like, everyone in the entire freaking school came up to me and they're like, so, you're dating so-and-so? I was like, I don't even know you. Like, what? So, it just seems, I had some feeling for what Akko was going through there. Alright, so I think that ends our discussion of the Senpai League for this evening. Okay, so now it's the part of the show where we talk about Anne Happy, episode 4. And this episode answered the questions I had last episode, because I was like, why is the teacher trying to do things to make their luck improve? Because I thought the whole premise of the show was their luck can improve because they're just naturally unlucky. But it became clear in this episode that the teacher is totally just making up excuses to have the kids bond, because that's the best way to mitigate their unluckiness, is just to build strong friendships. And then I was like, oh, okay, now it doesn't bother me that she's making them jump through these ridiculous hoops, because even she knows it's bullshit. So I enjoyed this episode. Leif?
I enjoyed it a lot, and you've basically said everything I had to say about it. I just kind of got to the end of it, and I had a real happy feeling from it, I guess I could say. And I don't have too much to say about the specifics of it. Just I really liked it.
Yeah, maybe this is becoming another one of those shows where it's just like, we feel so good we can't even talk about it. We shall see.
Anne is probably my favorite heroine from the series. I just really. I really like the jokes she brings to the table and her perspective in general.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a favorite. I want to say my favorite is what's her name, Hibiki, but the girl who I always complain doesn't get enough jokes. But then why is she my favorite if I'm always complaining she doesn't get enough jokes? I don't know. I don't get it. Need to think about this as I watch future episodes. Okay, so moving on to Bungo Stray Dogs episode 4, and I'm beginning to think the show is kind of inept.
Yeah.
Did that one guy transform into a tiger again?
No, no, he did not. But besides that, they spend the whole episode building up this one wing of the Port Mafia is like super duper powerful and scary and awful, and then at the end the detective agency defeats them, but we don't even get to see how they defeat them, and it's not like we know everyone's abilities well enough that we know how they could have defeated them. So I just felt totally cheated, that like, okay, I guess it's sort of cool that they were able to defeat these really strong guys, but we didn't get to see it. What the hell is up with that?
The whole thing was a setup for one joke, and that one joke was what the worst case scenario for what the Mafia could possibly do to the agency was. And I was thinking, I bet it's financial. And I had that in the back of my head the whole episode. Then when it finally came out, I was like, oh, that's just awful.
See, I didn't think that far ahead. I was open to the possibility that the worst case scenario was actually like a bad thing. I didn't think it was what Nakajima thought it was, which was the complete annihilation of the detective agency. But I just...
I wish that's what it was. I'd actually prefer that.
Yeah, and it's just kind of, this is maybe a silly thing to harp on, but it just bugs me how this Port Mafia seems to have like dozens upon dozens of agents who all have machine guns and everything, and it's like, what the hell are they smuggling that they can afford this?
Yeah, I mean, if they're super powerful, then I can understand why they can get away with having all these guns and whatnot. If they're as weak as they appear to be, I don't understand why the D agency isn't just crushing them.
Yeah, and also, if the D agency has just crushed them over and over again, why did they think this time would be different?
Yeah, I mean, there's that, and then there's the fact like, well, they're not even arresting these people. Is it just pointless to put them in jail? Like, they just throw them out the window at the end of the episode.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to drop this show because there's a were-tiger in it and he's cool. But it's one of those shows where I admit I'm just watching it for stupid reasons that, like, I would counsel smarter people to drop it. So.
I'm really on the fence about it. I'll keep up with it for as long as I can find time, but I'm not really enjoying it that much.
Yeah, if you stop watching it and don't have time for it, I'm not gonna lose sleep at night that we stop talking about it. I'll probably keep watching it anyway, but I'll just I'll keep my thoughts to myself. Okay, so we're gonna move on to Tanaka-kun is Always Listless, episode 4. We introduced a new character who, when they first kind of teased her introduction at the end of the last episode, I thought she looked too much like Miyano and was going to be confusing. But then once the episode started, it was clear she was so not Miyano that wasn't a problem at all, and I ended up enjoying this episode a lot. I basically just always enjoy this show. This and Flying Witch are kind of have a lot in common that way. What about you, Life?
I like it. The show was, when I initially watched the first episode, I was like, okay, I'm going to be able to drop this quick and easy and be done with it. And now every episode they keep adding a new character to make it interesting. And I keep thinking, okay, they're going to run out of characters to add and do something new with, but they keep doing it, and it keeps being really fun. So I don't know.
Yeah, and even when they presumably they're not going to add a new character for the rest, the next 8 episodes. I mean, I assume they eventually will run out of new characters, but they're also kind of slowly in the background developing Tanaka-kun that he's not quite as simple as he seems, so I think they're going to have material even after they've introduced everybody.
Yeah, I think they will, and I'm curious to see what it is.
Yeah, something that I think I forgot to comment on in a previous episode is that they're kind of building him up to be a little bit like the character from Tonari no Seki-kun, where he's lazy, but he's lazy in this kind of incredibly brilliant way that most people cannot even conceive of.
He doesn't have the energy of that show, but yeah, I see the comparison, and it kind of works. Yeah, it's definitely not a perfect analog, but like the part where he and delinquent girl with the long skirt are playing Go, and she's like, "Wahaha, I beat you," and then you realize he was just drawing pictures with the Go tiles and that sort of thing. Right, yeah, that was a good joke. Yeah. In this newest episode, there was the one moment where they did the whole Oda is my perfect soulmate joke again, and you just have what is the new girl's name? Oh shoot, I don't remember either. I'm sorry. The student president girl, the one who starred in the episode. She comes in and she misunderstands, thinking that she's less than he is, and I was, maybe the joke wasn't even that funny, but I was in stitches over that joke. The way it came across. Well, just how, yeah, I can't really put my finger on why that's so funny either, but that was pretty funny. Just one more thing about this episode is that the pink-haired girl, whose name neither of us can remember, and it's shameful, she reminded me a lot of Yukino from His and Her Circumstances, so that just kind of made me smile, just remembering that show. So, has anybody else seen His and Her Circumstances? I've seen the first episode of it.
I've seen the first episode.
Okay, well, it's a Gainax show during that period where Gainax started out their shows really strong and then just got bored and started making up bullshit about halfway through. So it's really fun to watch, but at the end it becomes like the story of Hideaki Anno, the director, doing his artsy thing, and it kind of stops being about the characters. That's actually what I've read, and that's why I haven't watched it.
Luckily it was based off a manga, so the manga version probably took a better route with those characters.
Yeah, totally random, and now that I'm thinking about it, I should probably actually read the end of that manga someday. Okay, but moving on, back on topic, to Super Lovers, episode 5, and I was pissed at this episode, because at the end of the last episode, I thought they were going to be in Canada, beautiful pastoral anime Canada, and in this episode, they're back in Japan. And also, I should probably say, like, maybe it sounds silly to say that anime Canada is, like, pastoral and beautiful, because there's certainly parts of Canada that really do look like that. Probably most of Canada looks a lot like that, but Ren actually says in this episode that he's from Vancouver. And I've been to Vancouver, and it does not look like that. Anyway.
I kind of get the feeling in general, and I'm almost worried to say this because of how much hate the show's getting, but I feel like the writing is just kind of incompetent. Like, it's just jumping around with no real direction.
Yeah, it really is. I still find it entertaining, but in part because of the incompetence. But and also they had that amazing conversation or series of conversations last episode where Haru basically abuses Ren and then wonders why Ren is leaving him. And there was something not quite as good, but similar in this episode where one of the other brothers, the asshole brother, there's like the asshole one and the one with the glasses is less of an asshole. He's like, oh, come on, Ren, I'll hang out with you. You shouldn't be, doing stuff on your own. And Ren is like, no, really, I'm fine. I can hang out on my own. They just go back and forth for a little while. And then Ren, gets him to open up about his feelings. And then asshole dude is like, well, you just rely on other people too much. You shouldn't do that. And stops out. It's like, he's been trying to tell you for 20 minutes to get the hell out of his room because he can take care of himself.
Yeah, I was just thinking to myself, no teenage boy in the world would ever feel like that was a justified insult.
Anyway, there was one legitimately good joke in the show, I think, and that was the bit with the Pomeranian. Like, they think it's a Tanuki.
That was. I was glad that they confirmed that it wasn't just me being crazy and the art style being that ridiculous. That was my first thought. Is like, that's the weirdest looking Tanuki I've ever seen in an anime. And I'm glad they explained that they actually know it's not.
Yeah, well, first of all, Pomeranian is best girl, even if it's a boy. Let's get that out of the way. And second of all, I like...
It has to be a boy. It has to be a boy.
Okay, but I like the fact that it's like the blind leading the blind, because the old dude is talking to Ren, and Ren's like, oh, so that's what a Tanuki looks like. And of course, Ren is like the one person in Japan who wouldn't know what a Tanuki looks like. So,
right.
Okay, so Super Lovers, you're totally, completely inept, and we love you anyway. It's fine. Okay, moving on to... Sorry. I'm not actually losing my mind. I've just been waiting to talk about this episode for a long time.
Yeah, I understand.
High School Fleet, episode 4. This was probably my favorite episode of the week because it just crossed the line from being like, regular grade stupid to just delightful high octane stupid. Like, let me break this down for you a little bit. So, okay, they realize, they're talking at the beginning, and they're like, we have to get back to school really fast, because we're in a serious situation. Let's get back to school, no distractions. And then in 5 minutes, it's like, oh, we're out of toilet paper. Let's go shopping. Let's go to the mall. It's like, really? And then the German girl is like, well, the problem is, your Japanese toilet paper is just too soft. And I love the implication there that, if only your toilet paper had friggin' thorns and barbed wire like our German toilet paper does.
You know, the funny thing about that whole episode, the whole thing with the toilet paper to me is I've heard women in my workplace argue those exact lines. So it's like, not about the Japanese, but about it being too soft, and about why it runs out so fast.
Right. I've also heard what do you mean you took the toilet paper to do this? It's toilet paper.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I kind of get this, and at the same time, my theory that these characters should all be older than they actually are just feels even stronger.
Yeah, but the hilarity doesn't end there, because they just fish random things out of the sea, including a friggin' chinchilla, which has magical ocean rabies. And then a girl gets sorry? A girl gets bitten by the magic chinchilla with ocean rabies and just starts firing machine guns.
Oh no, she didn't get bitten. That was mind control.
Oh, mind control by the chinchilla, right. Okay, and now it seems...
If you noticed in the first episode when the teacher is firing on them, she has the same eyes as the girl who gets possessed by the chinchilla in this episode and goes crazy.
So apparently, mind control ocean rabies is a big threat in the world of High School Fleet.
Yes. In fact, it seems like the implication is that the entire story to this point has been driven by this ocean rabies.
Yeah.
So what if this world war was caused because of an empire of chinchillas?
That sounds about like where this episode was going, and I am totally on board with that.
If next episode Kyubey shows up and they all have to become magical girls to save the world, I won't even be surprised.
Another thing I would be totally fine with. Also, I love the fact when they get discovered at the mall, and of course they're discovered by good guys, but they don't really know that yet, and they just suddenly throw the toilet paper all asunder. It's just no!
I think the joke would have been a lot funnier if they actually held up, if they were actually clinging to the toilet paper. I don't know. I was disappointed. I was like, they missed the joke there.
Yeah, actually, I guess it would have been funnier if they were struggling under the weight of the toilet paper, and they were like, "But we're running, but we really need toilet paper."
Yeah,
man.
I would have appreciated that.
Okay, maybe next time. One never knows with this show. Okay, that brings us to, on a somewhat more serious note, Cerebrus episode 5. And, oh, I'm sorry, LB, I forgot that you were watching the show too. Alright, next week my goal is to know everything LB is watching and not be an asshole, so...
Well, I do list it out for you in the Discord chat before every show.
I know! I'm sorry. I owe you. But what did you concur with our hilarity at this episode, or did you feel otherwise?
Oh, I totally thought that it was absolutely just balls to the wall, over the top, ridiculous. But on the same note, in my mind, in terms of needing to come up with a reason to get these girls off the ship, running out of toilet paper has to be the most hilarious and original reason I've seen in an anime in I don't know how long.
Yeah,
so just the fact that alone was their reason for needing to get off the ship. And it was just like, yeah, okay, you know what? That was hilarious to me. I laughed so hard.
Brings us to Cerebrus episode 5, which was, this was definitely an episode of Japanese animation where something happened. What happened in this episode? Oh, okay, we finally see the kind of dragon power or whatever it is that hero protagonist has, and it's kind of more like rabid cat power. Maybe he also has, like, ocean rabies or something, but... It was a little underwhelming after how it's built up, you know, kind of in all the show's, like, imagery and everything like that, but, Life, what'd you think of this episode?
You know, I think the interesting thing about Cerebrus, and I said this before, is that it's really got a slow burn going to it. It feels like, I mean, it has the same feel that I'd get from an actual epic fantasy novel, where nothing is really happening with any speed. And I don't know that I'm really okay with that, but the characters are all growing on me, at least slowly. And I'm finding myself enjoying it more and more every week, actually. I don't know.
Yeah, I love the bit where Erin is sitting in a tree playing her instrument, whatever that thing is, and he asks her something like, well, why are you really coming with me? And she's like, well, to help you achieve your goal. And he just, like, walks away and doesn't say anything. Like, well, it doesn't say anything else. Well, clearly, talking to you is pointless.
Yeah, you know, it's one of those things, it's like, you know, a lot of people really hate Hero. Like, I've been reading comments on the show, and just, like, they really, really hate him, and I think they're missing the point that he's not actually nearly as stupid as, you know, he lets on.
Yeah, well, I don't know. He seems like kind of a weird character to hate because, like I understand why people hate, just to give an example, someone like Kirito from Sword Art Online because, you know, he's the best at the game and so on and so forth. But, like, Hero is really not all that strong, and he kind of knows it, and it bugs him. Like, I don't see...
Yeah, like I said, he really reminds me more of, like, I don't know, of a hobbit or something who starts from nothing, and, you know, they know that they need to do something, but they don't really have the power to do it.
Yeah. Oh, maybe you can help me with something. Why are they going after that Nambuko guy? I honestly don't remember.
He's the arms dealer who's pretty much trying to turn the whole world inside out, and he's got the crystal from Hero's dad.
And that's the Grand Trawa.
Yeah.
Okay, I totally forgot like what the larger plot was for some reason.
Hero's basic. I mean, you know, people are saying Hero's a dumb character. His basic plan, which he does actually have one, is to get that crystal back and then go take on the dragon. It's not just go punch the dragon to death.
Yeah, and you know, I was kind of missing that too. And now that you say that, I was like, oh, no wonder. Now everything makes so much more sense. So.
Yeah. You know, it's one of those things. It's like I'm thinking a lot of people are really. Because it kind of feels it's slow, people are assuming it's generic and terrible, but there's more going on than they're noticing.
Or maybe the case is like those people are just watching a ton of anime that they just forget certain points. Like if they're watching 30 shows or 50 shows at once. You know, it's really hard to memorize every character's motives and goals.
I do admit that every episode I stop myself beforehand. I'm like, okay, I need to slow down, and I'm going to watch Cerebrus. Because otherwise, I don't even want to watch it.
Yeah, well, I think sometimes shows get a certain reputation, rightly or wrongly, and then it's like, oh, well, this show is stupid, so, I don't need to pay attention, and then they don't actually realize what's happening in the show, and then... But then
they make a fool of themselves, and they don't even realize.
But then they can't point out they're wrong, because then it's like, oh, I said the show was stupid, but now it looks like the show is smarter than me, no!
Right.
I think that's, like, one thing... That's, like, maybe one of the biggest... stumbling blocks to discussing anime and the internet. I've noticed that just everybody wants to prove they're smarter than the show, and it's not that I'm so convinced of smarter than the show, it's just I no longer care. I no longer think that's a reasonable metric. Like, I know I'm probably going to miss things in shows like Joker Games sometimes because I'm not good at mysteries, and that's okay. So...
I've always thought that was a ridiculous metric in the first place, but I don't really get offended when I miss stuff. I don't feel like I need to prove anything. I'm here to watch the show and have fun with the show. So I don't know.
Well,
it's just entertainment.
To just go on a little bit of a tangent, it is bothering me that I seem to be missing really obvious things this season. Like I missed what was really going on in Bakuon with Reimu Senpai. I've missed things in Joker Game and other shows, but I don't think I've ever watched this many anime in one season before. And B, I do kind of have the mommy brain thing going on a little bit, so I'm going to just kind of give myself a pass.
And I will point out, and it sounds like I'm bragging here, I'm actually really good at keeping track of fiction. I don't know why. It's just like, it's one of those things like, I wish this were a useful life skill. But
yeah, it's your God-given talent in life.
It's something I've always been, I don't know, good at.
Okay, speaking of things people are good at, another bad segue. Oh, well. Tonkatsu DJ Agetarou, episode 4. And that reminds me, Sal, did you talk to a friend of a friend who's a DJ?
Wait, before that, did y'all cover Sakamoto and Super Lovers, or did they not air this week?
No, Super Lovers we talked about, but Sakamoto, did I just forget it? Oh, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
Actually.
Yep.
How could I forget Sakamoto-kun? Oh, okay. Well, what am I saying?
I love it more than you do.
What am I saying? Sakamoto-sama.
Oh,
Jeez.
That means that LB is winning the husbando game. Sakamoto's gonna be his.
Yeah, I guess I should just give up on Sakamoto because you've shown your dedication so much more. I have Haru from Super Lovers, who's dumb as a brick, but that's not what I keep him around for, so, we're fine. Anyway, haven't you heard on Sakamoto, episode 3? I didn't enjoy this one quite as much as previous episodes. I still find it funny, but the first segment was kind of like more of what we've already seen before. And the second segment was kind of interesting in that the jokes were kind of at that dude's mom's expense, but I kind of felt sorry for her also, and I think you were kind of supposed to, so it was kind of melancholy at the same time. So I overall liked the episode, but I'm still, it wasn't as, like episode 1, I was just like, I'm so in love with this show, and this one was just okay to me. So, LB?
This was a big step up from episode 2. The problem, I realize now that I phrased my criticism of episode 2 poorly. It wasn't so much that he wasn't, cool enough. It was just that after the first episode was so over the top. And then episode 2 was a little more subdued, which kind of, caught me off guard. And that was the problem that I had with it. This episode went right back to being really over the top, really ridiculous. And that's what I love about this series. And that's why, and I really enjoyed this episode because of it.
Yeah, but I think at the beginning when he was doing all his backflips and everything while, I don't know, getting the bread, and I can't even like explain what he was doing, like all of his wonderful servant tasks. It was more like the first episode in that regard. Life, what about you?
See, I had an interesting experience where I watched Big Order right before I went into this episode of Sakamoto, and so I just kind of had this thought in mind, like this is more like Future Diary than Big Order is. Sakamoto's super dedication in the first episode. I just sort of watched it laughing to myself about probably jokes that no one else would even get, purely because I kept thinking of Future Diary while I was watching it, and his extreme creepiness with how he was becoming a servant for the guy in the first half of the episode.
So basically, even though you're not in the running for it to be Sakamoto's husband, though, you and Sakamoto have a special connection now, and you have your own relationship with the show. Yeah.
I don't know. It was the first half in particular. I didn't really get that much out of the second half, but the first half I thought was just, I don't know. It went so far overboard that I was just like, wow, they went there.
Yeah. I should probably mention, I watched nothing after I saw Big Order. I watched Big Order and then put my head in an ice bucket for now. I think it actually was the last thing I watched a couple of nights ago, and I was just like, what? And
Yeah.
and Wilson was just like, well, it's an anime. Things happen. And I was just anyway, he's enjoying it, by the way, because he's a huge Code Geass fan. So it's sort of scratching the Code Geass itch a little bit, but not really. Because he said at the end of the show, I need to find somewhere where Code Geass is streaming. So I think it's maybe not scratching the itch as much anymore. Anyway. I bet he's so happy that I reveal his secrets on the podcast. Anyway. Oh, I'm sorry. So let's actually go back to what we were going to talk about 5 minutes ago. Tonkatsu DJ Agetarou, episode 4. And Sal, I wanted to ask you if you talked to your DJ friends. I wanted to ask if DJs still use records like they do on this show.
Sadly I didn't get the chance to talk to him about it. However, I did do research on DJs like I promised.
Yay! So, even in this day and age, are DJs actually using, like, records the way they show them in the anime, or is that just, like, romanticized for our viewing pleasure?
Well, I mean, from what I read, I guess it varies on the DJ. Like, I guess there's still some that still like to keep it old school, and there's some that actually do use, like, I guess MP3s as well to mix and stuff.
But it's kind of like, if they're not using records, then I have no idea what they're doing. Then it's basically like, aren't they just mixing music behind a computer at a different time and then just playing it?
I'm guessing it's maybe like an advanced turntable, like maybe it still has the options. Like you can still do the features, but not do the records.
I need to
but
find out what's going on.
From what I read, it's like what the remixing is supposed to do is like whatever song they're putting on, whether the record or the MP3, it's supposed to be going with like whatever type of theme that the people want to dance to. So the DJ has to be familiar with the song's genre and apply the right mixes to make the song to make it very upbeat so that people can dance to. And then when the next song comes out, they have to find a way to transition smoothly to the next song so everyone's still dancing. There's like no like moment of silence where there's nothing.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that it's kind of like nebulous what a DJ actually does. Like, I mean, I've probably never thought about it before this show. But anyway, about this actual episode, I suppose. I really liked the really aggressive marketing that Agetarou's friends were doing for him. And I'm glad that he has a gig coming up soon, because even though I enjoy the show for its silliness, I think if he was just learning a slightly different DJ technique every week and, not cooking tonkatsu, it would get old. But the fact that he actually has a gig makes it kind of exciting. So I'm on board. Sal?
Oh yeah, I found it silly when he was about to cut the pork meat to make the tonkatsu, he just runs out of the restaurant with the meat while excited over his gig.
I was genuinely worried about the meat. I was like, they're a small business.
That's gonna go bad. Like all the dirt in the air. It's like you're contaminating it. You're gonna make the customer sick. And then you're gonna go. And then because of his incompetence, his dad's business is gonna go out of business, and they're gonna have to live in the streets.
Isn't that sad that I kind of had the same thought process, and I was like genuinely worried about their business, even though it's an anime. It's like they can't afford to lose that hunk of meat.
I mean, that hunk was huge. It's like
that's probably like $1,000. Okay, I need to get off this track.
You could feed like you could probably feed like over close to 100 people of that hunk.
Probably more. Life, what do you think of this episode?
I like the way they. My favorite thing about this anime is still the fact that they keep comparing DJ stuff to cooking. Like with the picking the meat, he's all relating with his dad over something that he never would have thought was cool before, because his dad carefully picks out the meat when he goes to the market. I'm just like, that's the most ridiculous thing to include, but it works.
And it's kind of bizarrely touching.
Yeah. It's like he's learning to care more about his dad's work while trying to pursue his DJing gig.
Yeah, I do have to say I don't think that he is. I don't know. I'm still not seeing any real future in doing both. But hey, maybe the show is going to prove us wrong.
Yeah, we can hope.
Yeah, we can hope.
Ultimately, it's all a heartfelt story about father and son. So it could be. All right, so we can move on to Space Patrol Luluco, episode 5, and I've decided that Trigger decided they had such a good time making Kill La Kill, they just want to make it again, because I just felt like I was watching a mini episode of Kill La Kill this week. Trigger, for some reason, loves, like, really cool, badass, evil women who hate their daughters. I'm not quite sure what that's about. but it's interesting. I don't really have much to say about it, though, other than the fact that I was distracted the whole time, thinking, like, wow, this is just like Kill La Kill. It's kind of fun, but it's just like Kill La Kill. Sal?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that kind of, if you notice, like, on Luluco's mom's jacket, like, the little design behind her cape, it's like the life fiber effect from Kill La Kill.
Yeah, it was exactly the same effect. Maybe it's actually going to become, like, a Kill La Kill spin-off. It would not surprise me.
Yeah. I mean, the whole her mom taking the city was kind of like possibly the biggest event in Luluco, and that apparently her dad was like the only force that could stop her, but he's frozen. And
vivisected, apparently. But that doesn't seem to be that big a deal. They're kind of not acting like that didn't happen. But anyway, Life, what'd you think?
Yeah, I had a thought that I don't think I've seen anyone else point out, and that it actually reminded me of Fooly Cooly when that giant hand grabs the thing that rips the city out, and I'm just like, I wonder if they were in some way inspired, because I think it's the same people, at least some of the same people working on it, inspired by the fact that there's a Fooly Cooly sequel happening.
Well, there's also the fact that Adamesk was a space pirate in Fooly Cooly, and it's like space pirates.
Yeah, and the colors were even right, so I just kind of made me wonder, did they do that on purpose?
So basically, when we're watching Space Patrol Luluco, we're all thinking about different shows.
Oh, speaking of other coincidences, like, it's also a coincidence that Luluco's voice actress is in an episode of Space Pirates, because her voice actress Mao, before she ever got into anime voice acting, she was an actress who appeared in the 35th Sentai series Kaizoku Sentai Go Kaiger, where the main team were all space pirates.
Sal, that is an amazingly random piece of information.
I think she probably made her debut as a voice actress. Like, Samurai Flamenco was one of the shows that she first appeared in. She might have appeared in something earlier, but that was like the first show I saw her in. Like, she was one of the idols. She was the idol with the brown hair and blue eyes. That was part of the one that was, the flamenco magical girl.
Do you actually follow voice actors seriously?
No, I just randomly came across that. It's like, Mao Ichimichi, and then I just did research and found out, like, holy snap, she was in this show. Like, yes, like, one of my favorite actresses is doing voice acting. Yes.
That's cool. Okay, because that's something I always feel kind of guilty about, that I don't actually know voice actors very well. I know Norio Wakamoto. And I know the girl who does Kuroko's voice in Railgun, because whenever she shows up, I'm like, oh god, no. But not too many other people. Not too many other people. Okay, so we're gonna finish up with Pande Piece episode 5. I think this may be the third episode in a row that didn't even have like one joke. Am I right, Lifesong? Do you think so too?
Oh, I watched it. Did anything happen?
They were talking about how one girl draws manga, and they're gonna bring her curry bread because she draws manga.
Yeah.
Oh, right. And they were rooting on her for having a relationship that she doesn't have with the person she's working with that we haven't met.
I mean, I guess the only closest thing is maybe that whole idea she wants to pursue an art career, and she's just embarrassed about that. So maybe there's
art career is laughable in and of itself.
Yeah.
Was that the joke? Because if that was the joke,
that's probably the joke. So maybe other people around her who are not her friends, maybe were discouraging her from going down the manga path.
I actually like it when anime is about manga. I know a lot of people don't, but like, I just watched Bakuon recently. I haven't seen all of it, I don't think, but I really like shows that are about the manga process, just because I used to draw comics, but I don't want it in this show. I want bread in this show.
Speaking of manga, like, I would suggest this one J-drama called Aoi Hono / Blue Blazes. It's actually, it's only, each episode's only like 20 minutes long, but it's actually both based off a real story about this mangaka and how he got into the industry while he was in college, along with how Anno and the Gainax people first formed Gainax while they were in college, because the guy happened to go to school with Anno and the Gainax people.
That does sound interesting. Someday I'll watch more J drama. Today is not that day, but Well, I'll keep that in mind for when that day
So
comes.
the best moment was seeing Ano animate a car blowing up with only a notepad without a light table, and he actually made it move fluidly. So if he actually did that in college, that's amazing.
I need to see someone animate a notepad now. I need to see this happen. Oh man. But J-drama's tough because like it's hard to find it in a legit manner because like Crunchyroll has some J-drama, but they don't get like the cream of the crop like they do with anime. You get the impression they kind of pick whatever they can get a good deal on when it comes to J-drama. So
I guess it depends. I guess like maybe once they get more viewers, if there's like a more demand for it, maybe they'll try out other shows.
I think Crunchyroll's doing pretty well in the grand scheme of things, but you know, it's not like I've looked at their financials anytime, so. Okay, so I think we're actually done for this week.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay, so good night, everybody. Make sure not to pick any chinchillas out of the ocean and get ocean rabies because that's dangerous.
Make sure you keep your kitty nearby.
And don't run out of toilet paper.
And don't run out of toilet paper.
Yeah, whatever you do, dear God, don't run out of toilet paper. Okay, good night, everybody.
Buenas noches.
Okay.
Okay, y'all on the East Coast, go to bed.